As we all probably know by now, the Chicago Bulls have been featured heavily in the trade rumor mill, and as 2024 is just a few days away, what are the things they should be targeting as the trade deadline is on February 8th, just around the corner? I'm your host, Joey Mercer. This is another episode of Bulls Digest, and just before we get into it there today, I just want to say that about 88% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you aren't already subbed, make sure to go down below, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and everything you need to know about the Chicago Bulls is right here on Bulls Digest, and you won't have to search for this content anymore. It'll be notified right to you. So without further ado, let's get into the topic of today, and that is 2024 trade wish list. So there's a few things that Bleacher Report went over an article that we'll be citing today, and I'm going to give my own opinion on some of those things, and maybe there's some things that they mentioned that I think personally that should be addressed that haven't been. So we'll get into the article right away from Bleacher Report, and it starts by saying, Ranking Bulls Top Trade Priorities Entering 2024 by Zach Buckley. This was actually put out today on December 28th, so it's hot off the press, so to speak, and we're going to get in right to that article, starting out by saying, the Chicago Bulls should have some busy weeks ahead of them. They arguably need to be as active as anyone between now and the February 8th NBA deadline. And that's true regardless of whether they blow up this roster the way many think they should. If they're going to push forward with this core, presumably minus Zach Lavine, then they need to upgrade the roster around it. Let's plot out the 2024 trade priorities for this franchise then. So it's true. I mean, it's come out multiple times now from the front office, coaching staff, anybody who's really been asked, and they said that they want to look at the team and see what it's like when Zach Lavine is no longer there. So they've really heavily pushed for a trade for him to go out, and they haven't pulled the trigger on one just yet. We haven't really been notified of many of those trades. It's just speculation more than anything that we've gone over that would presumably go down. But once a trade comes around the corner, I hope the Bulls really pull the trigger on it, as the team is playing so well without Lavine, and they even just won their last game without Vooch. So the team has really stepped up, put in a lot of effort, and DeMar DeRozan has been a fella that has definitely gave a lot of credit to some of the younger guys stepping up, and that's great to see a veteran doing so. The next thing we saw was the first thing they need to do is brighten the future. So it's obvious to see that the Bulls don't really have any prospects that you're like, oh yeah, he's going to be a star. Coby White has played really well this season with Zach Lavine out of the lineup, but he's not necessarily a prospect anymore. He is still a young player, but we need to get some guys who have untapped potential. Coby White seems to be tapping into his potential right now, and I hope that he continues down that path for the rest of the season and for the unforeseeable future. The first thing they said here when talking about the future, it says the Bulls have seemingly learned two things this season. Zach Lavine isn't a keeper, but Coby White sure is. On the Lavine front, offloading the high-scoring, high-priced, oft-injured guard has become the main organizational focal point for now, per Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago. Because of Lavine's massive contract and lengthy injury history, his trade value won't measure up to his stature as a two-time All-Star who routinely puts gaudy numbers on the stat sheet. Win now teams with offensive limitations, the Los Angeles Lakers, could still see him as a worthy investment though, and should at least be willing to sacrifice a decent asset or two. Whatever Chicago brings back, the package should be future-focused, at least to some degree. The Bulls have a legitimate long-term building block in White, and they hope to have another in Patrick Williams, but that's all their future holds. That simply can't be the case any longer for a club that's fighting just to stay in the play-in tournament race. And that's fair enough to say. I mean, we've seen Lavine heavily featured with the Los Angeles Lakers above any other team, and it seems like they're going to take on a contract like that. The Lakers really need another option to consistently score the ball and could definitely give up some defense if Lavine is to be put into the lineup, as they have a lot of defensive pieces over there, are a really lackluster offensive team at the moment and could use that extra punch in a Lavine. Right now they are hovering around the play in the Bulls, but I think if Lavine's off the team and we can get some defensive prowess in return with how the team's played without him in the lineup, I really strongly believe this team could be a playoff team by the end of the season, if not a little bit better than the play-in tournament the way that they've been playing as of late. The next thing that we saw was they need to add a ball mover. So yes, the picture of Jevon Carter there. He has struggled for the most part this year. He's had some glimpses of being great, but for the most part, Jevon Carter has really struggled. And when they come to adding a ball mover, they're talking about somebody to replace Lonzo Ball. He's been out right now, and it says the Bulls have plenty of mouths to feed on this roster, but they've been without an expert table setter ever since Lonzo Ball was lost to a knee injury in January 2022. While White has played his way into the most improved player race, he's more of a scorer than a ball mover. Alex Caruso and Ayo Dosunmu do a lot of things well, but primary playmaking isn't one of them. If the hope was newcomer Jevon Carter's passing would pop in a more sizable role, well, none of that has materialized. In fact, he's finding minutes even harder to come by than they were with the Milwaukee Bucks last season. He also isn't helping his case with a ghastly 37.7 field goal percentage. The Bulls are just 27th in assist percentage per NBA.com, and it's not because they're a turbocharged isolation offense, which is in the 25th percentile. They just don't have a high-end quarterback. If they want to give this group its best chance for success, they need to find the kind of floor general who can tie everything together. And that's very true. I mean, with Lonzo Ball in the lineup, he is really the guy that would be performing this role of quote-unquote quarterback, but we can't rely on him coming back as it really doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon, if at all. And what is he going to be like when he does come back? We need to plan like he isn't going to and get a point guard that can really push the needle. Kobe White is a point guard that likes to score more so and is probably better suited at the 2. He can definitely play the point guard position off the bench or something like that, but maybe they do need to look at the very least for a guy to come off the bench that can steer the ship a little bit more if the needle isn't being moved. That seems like a really good idea in my opinion. Next thing we saw was they need to improve the spacing, and it's no secret that the Bulls have been a bad three-point shooting team, not even attempting as many teams for the past number of years. I can't remember the last time this team was a really good three-point shooting team when it comes to attempts and percentage combined. It's been a very long time. It just isn't what the Chicago Bulls really define themselves as, but it's time to get with the modern times, get some more spacing, and really attack that aspect of the game. This says, you may have heard this a time or 20, but the Bulls are not a good shooting team, like, at all. They have bottom third connection rates from the field at about 46%, which is 27th, and from 3 at about 36%, which is 17th. They are middle of the pack in free throw shooting at 80%, which is 14th. Oh, and they don't take many attempts from deep, only 33 a game, which is 18th, or get to the line very often at all, at 21 a game, which is 25th. This offense, ranked just 22nd in efficiency, needs more breathing room. The lack of proper spacing doesn't give DeMar DeRozan ideal room on his drives, and any post-up plays for Nikola Vucevic can be uncomfortably cramped. Adding a quantity plus quality shooter to the mix could be a subtle but significant way to upgrade this squad. And that's very true. I mean, it's not that difficult in the league to get a guy that can just knock down shots. We could get a Kyle Korver type in the game that is maybe just a team defender, really, really good shooter. Obviously, Korver's one of the best shooters all time. Not talking about just quite his caliber, but we could get a guy that is a three-point specialist that can even play just a little bit of team defense, not necessarily on the ball. And that could really help us space things out, as Vooch is so good in the low block and should get more post-up touches per game. I think that could really throw other teams off as the league starts to get smaller, and he's still such a versatile big that I think that could really add to Chicago's offense and definitely space things out on the DeMar drives too. That's a very good point put forward there, and I think that's exactly what the Bulls need to attack are these three things. The only other thing that I would add there is that they really do need to get some more guys that have versatility. That would be what I'd want to see as well. Maybe we can get some two-way guys, like guys that can play just 3 and D, or maybe they can do a couple things like rebound and, you know, maybe on the offensive end they can just shoot a pull-up midi, maybe space it out a little bit more like that. We need some versatility. That's the only thing I would add on this team. It's hard to find, but if we're able to, we need to jump at it right away. Those players don't necessarily have high value in the league, depending on who you ask, and maybe we can get one of them for a very low value. This has been your host, Joey Mercer. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. We do play, actually, the Indiana Pacers tonight. That's the money line on it. Seems like they're kind of in favor of Indiana, but it is very close, despite the fact that Vooch is still out and Zach Lavine. That is crazy to see the odds right there. But Indiana is a very bad defensive team, but also one of the better offensive teams. So it could go either way. If our defense can really step up, I think we can definitely attack that poor Indiana defense and come out with a W at the end of the day. I don't know if they're going to be properly set for Andre Drummond, as he looks to put up another big game on the glass. And, yeah, who's going to guard DeMar DeRozan? We'll have to see how things work out there tonight in Indiana. And hopefully the Bulls can come out with a W. I hope that you did like the video, though. Go down below, hit the like button, comment on it. I love to hear from all you guys. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're doing this every single day and keeping you up to date with the Chicago Bulls. This has been your host, Joey Mercer. Signing off.